recently published some documents on this as the ripple effect film. So we're super excited about this film and this work, and I'm super excited about this panel because this is really near and dear to us as we see the industry change quite a bit. So I guess without further ado, we're going to just kick right into this. Brad, you want to come on and tell us about who you are and what you're doing?
Thank you, Eric. Just starting up my camera. Hopefully that's all working. I know time's limited, so I'm going to just jump on in. I don't want to tread on the toes of everyone coming after me. Hopefully the screen share is working. Is that coming through on your end there?
Yep, I can see it good.
Awesome. Excellent. So I'm going to jump in, talk about how VP pipeline, in my humble opinion, starts with planning. And so, first up, me, I'm that guy in that shirt there. So I've bounced around for quite a number of years and spent some time sort of directing animated TV series, head of layout at previs at DreamWorks Animation, director of photography, head of layout at Frame Store, and head of previs at Double Negative. But probably more related specifically to today is back in sort of 2014, 15, I started my own visualization company, IO Entertainment, based out at Pinewood Studios. And the reason I was doing that is some of the first self-tracking mobile devices were coming out. Google Project Tango tablets and Microsoft, the original HoloLens 1, I guess we call it these days. And so I saw an opportunity where we could start moving some of the visualization process that helps plan for the expensive shoots onto mobile devices that can be run by the filmmakers themselves. So I'm at third floor now, and I'm continuing that work, still based at Pinewood Studios, where my main part of my role is sort of interfacing with heads of department and key creatives, basically sort of throughout the industry, to try to work out what we can do to help them in their process to plan and that pipeline created to get them what they want on the day once they step on stage, in the volume, etc. So third floor, hopefully people are aware of us. I think we're sort of probably the best known visualization studio in the industry. If not, this is a bunch of stuff we work on. Hopefully you've seen something there if you don't know us already. So virtual production, because we're dialing in, it's a bit of an umbrella term. So I just want to define, what is it that I'm meaning by that today? I've borrowed a lovely diagram from our friends at Epic. I hope they don't mind. It's circular and sort of multi-department involved, which is what we like. What I'm going to focus on is this section. And, this is Pipeline Conference, so we've got pipes. What I'm really, really interested in is the reservoir that the pipes are connected to. And this is, a bit of term I like keep throwing out there. The reservoir of engine-based assets that can surround this whole area, from art department through to volume, blue screen, location, whatever, that enables a hell of a lot of stuff to happen. And that's the planning that can fit into this pipeline that I think is so important. Just to clarify, that's the volume there. Third floor, myself, you won't tend to find us in that spot. We won't tend to see us on the volume. We don't tend to do a lot of on-screen in-focus pixels. Where do you find us? We're kind of everywhere else, probably just not on the volume itself. So that's the sort of virtual production viz scope, as I call it. So what's all this about the planning thing? Mandalorian, sort of early mid days of pandemic, it came out with a big bang. We loved working on it. One of the things that came out of that a lot that people sort of hooked onto was, on the volume, you can change anything on the day. Now, fast forward a couple of years, there's been some, missed expectations, a little bit of a bumpy road. And what I was finding at Cannes, especially this year, pretty much everyone present was changing that message a little bit to a much more sort of realistic. You can change anything on the day as long as you already planned to change it on the day. So it's all about the planning, and why I'm sort of focusing on this area, because that's where we live. That's what we do with Viz. We answer questions. We help, drive decisions to execute a plan so that when they turn up, they're getting everything they want. So that reservoir of digital assets, engine-based assets that I sort of referred to, the earlier that can come onto a show from, really earlier concept days, it allows everybody on the show to start visualizing, asking questions, answering questions, driving decisions and planning. And because of that, it is essentially the best de-risking mechanism out there for expensive shoot days, volume otherwise. Now, what we don't sort of tend to hear so much about is that reservoir of digital engine-based assets also democratizes the process a lot. And so we can get a lot more diverse kind of voices involved in the discussions, the planning, the viz, because if you've got those assets engine-based in your reservoir, it's quite easy for people like us to give you tools, portals, windows, to be able to reach in, pull those onto an iPad, spin it round, zoom in, and discuss with a collaborator what it is you were thinking. And so that's what myself and Third Floor, we're very focused in on right now, is how we can leverage a lot of this stuff to get better value for everyone, better planning. I'm going to quickly show a few tools here, and then I'll drill into them. So what we're seeing here, HoloLens-based Chimera. This is sort of review for the art department. You can see a tabletop type scenario, but boom, you can put it up life size. Talk about all of the options with the set build, what's virtual, what's not. When you do a tape down review where you show the director in the sound stage, instead of paper and tape, you can now see the whole set. You can move things, part of the VADS type services. I'll touch on a tiny bit, but we can bring in the volume you might be shooting on, how that will affect build, what's going to be post. If you're shooting on backlot, there's your build, there's your blue screen extension, there's your post extension, scouting. Here's another sort of planning tool, Cyclops. This is running on an iPad. We basically track all of the CG extensions on a set so you can wander around and look at it. Or as you saw, you can throw in a little game vice and just start VCamming and grabbing screen grabs and all sorts of stuff. So again, this is sort of this thing that we're really focused in on, is trying to increase the ability to plan prior to the expensive shoot days. And we can do that with virtual production tools if we have that reservoir of assets available. So again, just sort of going into some of these types of tools that can be helpful. So Chimera in the HoloLens, again, what everyone likes, and this is what I think we all want to aim for more, is it's just human interaction, because they can see each other. It's a natural conversation. It's just like the old days, but better, because you have the whole set floating in front of you. You can point at stuff. You can see each other's expressions. Someone's saying yes, but their eyes are saying maybe. That's very hard to do in VR, and why a lot of the people will not present or try to sell ideas in VR in groups. It also, with the engine and what's possible, we can make it multi-user, multi-device, multi-location. So we can bring anyone in from all over the world. If you want a lot of people in one space, put HoloLenses on. If you want someone to pop in from their apartment in New York, then yeah, just throw on a Quest. Someone wants to look at a camera view, or they don't like wearing things, we'll just give them an iPad. Same session, they can see each other's avatars. And I think one of the big things we're finding is, because this is non-runtime, it's all editor-based, we can change anything that you can do in the engine itself. You want to multiply, move, change scale, spin, delete, different variants, etc., do it all real time as directed, and everybody in the session, wherever they are, will see all of that updated. And again, for that sort of human need, it's really helpful to be able to toggle between tabletop, which is very analytical and objective kind of design view of things. Some people can extrapolate to real life, a lot can't. So we can just blow it up to real life. And then instead of the objective view, you get the subjective view of walking a space. You can get a few of the production assistants and people to go shoulder to shoulder and see what 4 people would look like standing in that alcove. Does it feel right? Does it not? What about the iPad? Change the lens. How's it look through camera? It's all about that sort of planning process that this enables. And then, as I was sort of saying earlier, we can also bring in you're going to shoot on V stage. Let's bring in V stage volume. here we go. This would be physical. That's tinted dark blue. That's a VAD pixel. That's light blue. That's going to be a post pixel. We could shift it over here. That might be the physical build. You're in soundstage so-and-so. This is a proposed physical build. Maybe there's no blue screen. Maybe, maybe there's no volume. We can go through all those options and people can walk them and understand before it's actually built, this is what I'm going to get on the day. Am I happy now or do I want to speak up? And then again, sort of jumping over to Cyclops. This is, sort of super lo-fi. It's a little bit like a simulcam light. Again, leveraging that digital asset reservoir to extract more value. This will have all the CG extensions, probably a LiDAR of the set. We go on location on set, wherever, line up the LiDAR to the physical build or the physical location, hide that, and now all of the CG extensions are visible and everyone can hand it round, have a bit of a chat, talk to each other. Are they happy? They can play back previs. They can probably select some things and scale and rotate if they really need to. And we can also, as I say, stick on like a game vice, load a full CG set, and someone in the cab to the airport can go quickly around scouting, changing lenses, take some screen grabs, take a quick time, email it to someone, keep planning. I'm going to show a couple of quick examples because, again, only a little bit of time. This is on Witcher 2. It's a little bit blurry. I'll try to run it a couple of times. This is us on set looking through the iPad. You'll see the crew milling about. We've already lined it up, but there's a CG creature and some extensions. So there's the creature. Let me, whoops, sorry, go back a couple. There we go. Here's the creature there. The brown buildings in the background, they're the CG extensions. What's below the dark areas, that's the actual set. So again, because it's all lined up, everyone can see what's on camera, what's not. Henry can have a little bit of a look. Where's the creature moving? What's my movement, timing? The cameraman can work out where's he panning, where's he tilting. And everyone can see where they go off into the CG. If there's no extension visible, there's no VFX. The moment they see extension, there's VFX. And then, taking all these tools, what we're trying to do is, having come from blockbusters, some of the productions that can really make the best value out of some of these planning tools early in their pipeline are the smaller shows, where these are going to take up a massive percentage of their budget. So we've just got a beta of Cyclops that runs on iOS devices. Anyone can download it, so feel free to grab a QR code and grab it. And we're just trying to work with anyone who might want to use it in some way. If it's an independent VFX soup and a MacBook, in a little van with a director zipping around the countryside, his digital asset reservoir might be 6 FBX files, but it still makes a difference. They can go to places, they can drag those assets in and go, is this where we want to shoot stuff? So as I say, that's the big sort of focus for me. We can early on use a lot of these tools with a digital asset reservoir to help plan and de-risk the whole expensive shoot days. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brad. And I did have the pleasure of working with you on my last production, or your team. So it was pretty awesome on Fathead to get to explore some of these options.
I've
and
heard
I
great
guess
things, man.
I didn't get to touch is that AR tool, that HoloLens, but that would be absolutely
next time,
amazing.
Man.
So
next time.
yeah,
if you want to grab the beta of Cyclops, pop it on your iPad and have a play. Let us know what's not good.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Next up, we have Josh. Josh, I've gotten the opportunity to run into him several places around town lately, just doing some wonderful things. Really love the work your team's doing. You want to tell us a little bit more about you and what you're up to?
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric. So my name is Josh Karakis. I'm the head of virtual production at Pixamondo. We are an established visual effects company that 3 years ago made the pivot into real time and specifically focus on virtual production. And every kind of facet of everything under the umbrella of virtual production, which has a lot of reach. Our primary focus has been final pixels filmed on LED screens. And our approach has been somewhat unique in that we've taken on the ownership of the equipment, the design of the facilities, the operation, the integration, and also creating all the content that ultimately gets displayed, and then round trip that through post-production, which has been a very educational experience. In fact, I will attempt to play a video here. Bear with me. This is my first week on a MacBook. I really should try your application now, Brad. All right, so I'm going to, first give my Mac permission to share. There we go. And round two.
You'll grow to like the MacBook. It will actually be great eventually.
Yeah, definitely have some growing pains right now. All right, you know what? I was going to show some eye candy to make up for the fact that I had not prepared slides, but I will just have to do without it and point everyone to our YouTube channel, where we just dropped a pretty neat ICVFX reel for some of the work we did a number of years ago, finally seeing the light of day. But really what I wanted to do was use this opportunity to speak from the perspective of a company who's often in the role of kind of the aggregate of an ICVFX production. Given that we own and operate multiple facilities, we also provide content for them. So that gives us that kind of unique insight as to how we would do it. But now, in our experience, having worked with multiple other vendors, Brad, yourself included, we've realized that potentially the way we've done, we prefer to do it may not be the most open, the most malleable, and the ultimately what's best for the production. So I kind of wanted to just openly discuss some of the pain points we've encountered and just kind of prep anyone who may be considering bringing an environment to a stage, or those of you who are already actively working in a space, to just kind of open a dialogue on that, because I think it is ultimately very important to how we're successful. So first off, I'd like to echo what Brad was saying in that prep is absolutely paramount. In order for virtual production to be successful, well, first off, if you're going to do anything in camera, you really need to commit. If any one piece falls short at any given point, kind of the whole house of cards collapses. So bringing everyone together in prep is absolutely essential. And not just really the primary stakeholders that you would assume, the visual effects supervisor, the pre-visualization company, and the final pixel vendor, but bring in the art department, bring in the cinematographers, bring in anyone who's ultimately going to be working with this content on set who needs to have a voice in a conversation. Because our environments can only look as good as the DP or the production designer makes it. So I think that part is really critical. Then another key thing is on a lot of these shows, it's near impossible for a single vendor to handle the entire project, especially when we have multiple shows happening. We did do all of the pre-visualization, VAD, final pixel, and post-production for a number of Star Trek series. And admittedly, it was a very large workload. So more and more what we're seeing is multiple vendors need to collaborate together on a project in order to deliver and meet an episodic timeline and budget. So one key thing is typically you'll have a company like the third floor handling the pre-visualization portion. And then in parallel, you'll have the virtual art department, the VAD, which is still, I think, admittedly, somewhat loosely defined. In my opinion, VAD is all things content, be that concept art, collaborating with pre-visualization, which is more on the virtual camera department, and then ultimately bringing things in to final pixel. I do believe that it all lives within the world of VAD. That is just my opinion. I think as an industry as a whole, we're still defining that. Now, ensuring that there's a successful handoff between all the work that's happening in previs and in VAD is absolutely essential. I mean, the last thing you want to be doing is building silos and having what I like to refer to as terminal data, where you're creating something that doesn't end up being passed on and continues throughout the pipeline. So again, having everyone working together seamlessly, developing a workflow so you're able to share assets easily is quite important. And then now kind of pivoting a bit more into the final pixel and the stage delivery portion of things, what is the deliverable? I realize a lot of you are coming from the traditional visual effects space, and in real time, well, it's somewhat of the Wild West right now. kind of the current standard for most virtual productions is to use VCS, primarily Perforce, because it handles large assets, specifically large binary files, quite well, as opposed to Git LFS, which is just, well, a nightmare for anything content. So typically you'll have a Perforce depot or stream specific to the show that every vendor can work on and seamlessly exchange assets, which will then ultimately get ingested into the stage. The way we've set up our streams is we have kind of the environment portion where the VAD freely works, hosted on an AWS cloud-based Perforce depot. And then we have an automation system which will automatically move any changes that they've flagged as or deemed stage ready approved. Those will get merged down to our facility where they go through a rigorous QC process and ultimately can ideally be filmed. So this is the way we've been operating so far. But it may not necessarily be the best way, or rather I see a lot of friction with new visual effects studios who've never worked with Perforce, have limited experience with Unreal, making that transition. And so ultimately it begs the question, is VCS the right solution, or is something like USD a better solution in this particular use case? Although granted, with USD, there's a lot of additional pipe that we'll need to lay to make that a viable candidate. But personally, that's where I'm leaning, is the transition more towards USD as opposed to Perforce for asset management and the deliverable that you want to send to a stage. Another question is, how are we handling color management? Internally, we have an end-to-end ACES pipeline, and when we manage the VAD stage operation and post-production for a show, we typically just stay ACES. One thing I've realized, though, is the Unreal ecosystem, which a lot of people are basing their virtual productions on, is not inherently ACES. In fact, the vast majority of assets that are available are sRGB. So while you may kind of mandate that you have an end-to-end ACES show, there's a very high probability that some sRGB assets will get kit bashed into that pipeline. And that has been problematic for us in the past. So very clearly setting out what is the optimal color space, the working color space, and ensuring that every vendor adheres to that throughout the pipeline. More and more now, we're starting to gravitate towards just keeping everything sRGB for simplicity's sake. If you can't control how if you can't control where ultimately textures are being authored, and it's somewhat of a black box, it's better to go with the devil you know. That said, Epic very sneakily added in functionality that allows you to, on a per texture basis, convert to whatever your working color space is. So gone are the days where you'll need to batch process all of your asset publishes just for a virtual production ingest. You can do that kind of after the fact, again, if you're intentional, and convert everything to the correct color space. So that's another quite important aspect of this pipeline, and having multiple vendors collaborate together. Another thing, and kind of probably one of the biggest paradigm shifts between traditional visual effects and real time is, well, it needs to run consistently at real time. So now you need to factor in performance metrics. So what we've done at Pixelmondo is we built an automation system where whenever an artist submits something to Perforce, that will run a Jenkins process that ultimately will launch the environment and gather a lot of performance metrics. We typically run pics. We also do render doc captures if specified by a technical artist. And that allows us to not only see the performance implication of that one artist submission, but also to graph it over time. So that way we are able to see, okay, there's a serious downtrend here. We may need to start beginning to optimize or potentially fix a mistake that had cascading side effects. And all of this, again, is in the goal to ensure that we retain the highest possible fidelity while ensuring that things can run in real time on the stage. Another thing is you also need to consider what ultimately you're rendering. An artist's desktop at 4K is not necessarily representative of what will ultimately be deployed on the stage, where you'll likely have multiple 4K viewports per machine, per node. So juggling that is also quite important, and that's what our automation system does. Is it replicates in kind of a headless way exactly how we intend to deploy pixels on the screen, so that we get fairly accurate performance metrics in that sense. Another really important thing, and Eric, again, please feel free to cue the music and bring up the cane at any point, is data capture and retention on set. We're capturing so much useful metadata, and traditionally a lot of that metadata gets stripped out of plates, and visual effects vendors on the post side don't really get all that useful information. And I think now with virtual production, it gives us an opportunity to kind of fix some of the sins of the past and do this a lot better and ensure that we're capturing every possible element of what's being recorded on set, and handing that off in an easily digestible way. Some of that can include lens information, camera data, but also the full positional and rotational tracking of our optical motion capture system, which effectively is 50% of the way of the match move process. So providing a LiDAR scan with that optical motion capture data gives you a big head start. So again, these are things that you need to be factoring in on the post-production side of your pipeline to then ingest and re-render shots. The way we handle things at Pixo is for all shots that don't really hit the mark in camera-wise that we need to re-render for whatever reason, we almost always re-render those shots through Unreal. So ensuring that we do have that round trip that we can take through Match Move to ensure that we're fully aligned, ingesting the motion capture data and then re-importing into Unreal has been absolutely essential. And also, if needed, doing that export via USD out to, we use Arnold and Houdini primarily for those final pixel renders. But again, ensuring you have material parity and layout matches as well.
Josh, I got lots of wonderful comments or thoughts on some of the stuff you're expanding upon. I absolutely agree with you around the metadata, the tools, and kicking it out. SMPTE is in the middle of something called the RAS Lens Metadata Committee, which is doing some really great work around getting the lens metadata. That tracking metadata is so critical there, and other things, so I'm totally in agreement with you that capturing as much as possible is very valuable. I found your comments around the USD and basically Perforce very fascinating. Perforce is much trickier than a lot of people realize, especially if you're working with distributed teams or even multiple distributed teams. On our last project, we had teams in Greece, New York, London, and LA, and making sure that there was a consistent grammar or way people were implementing the changes was very, very important. Because if you don't have that pipeline set up right and you're not managing that, it can be a disaster, quite candidly. I'm sure you have experienced some of the challenges there, but you have a much more solid, cohesive team. But when you have to work with more and more people for some of these big things, it can be really a challenge. But let's give Aaron a chance. And thank you so much, Josh. Wonderful things to say. And I'm also really excited about learning more about your School of Education, because we do think that educating people on not just the process, but some of the aspects of the pipeline are very valuable to have that labor force as this field grows. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
All right, Aaron, it's all up to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Daly. I am the lead technical director of virtual production in real time at FuseFX. I have an experience with a lot of kind of on-set supervision and on-set working virtual production and LED wall technology, as well as simulcam or LED walls, a lot of green screen and such like that. I've been in virtual production for about 7 years-ish, give or take, kind of since VR died and virtual production got its boom. But I'm here to talk about a tool that we created. And let me share, one sec. Yeah, so at Fuse Effects, we thought a lot about kind of like how virtual production is made and how it's created and the use cases 9 times out of 10. I'm sure we've all experienced kind of clients coming to us and saying, we'd love to do this virtual production thing. We have a stage ready, we've priced it out, and we're shooting in a week, or our budget's this much, and it's not enough to build a full 3D set. So this is a solution that would say, all right, you don't have the time or you don't have the money to build out a full 3D set. What is the next step down that is not necessarily gives you everything, but can give you a lot for very simply. So as we've all known, as you've heard from everyone here, virtual production is a very easy thing, as we all know. There's nothing to it. All you got to do is decide which DCC you want, however you want to create your content, which engine you need to master, however it is you need to master it, camera stuff, all these things that is a lot for any individual or any person to kind of master or kind of get to be proficient at. So the goal of our technology is to democratize it and make it simpler. So when the stage comes to you or the client comes to you and says, hey, we have a configuration, and whatever the configuration may be, wall, cave, cylinder, whatever has ceiling, rollaway panels, whatever. Our goal is to be able to insert our tool into that as simply as possible. Let me go past this one. So what is the tool? The tool that we're doing is a system that allows you to take images and place them on the wall and allow you to very efficiently and very easily manipulate the images in a way that you can give anyone on set the ability to change anything on about the image. So let me explain a little further. So what we do is we take some of Roscoe's photographers and they capture a lot of images, a bunch of panoramic images, and they give it to a bunch of smart computers, a bunch of smart people with cool machines to make very smart images. So let me backtrack a little bit. What we are doing is to create an image that it allows you to manipulate it on set fully and easily, using a lot of Roscoe's very high quality backdrops. And so we're creating this dynamic backdrop solution that you can change and manipulate easily on set. So what can this smart picture do? It can do a lot of things that are easy and a lot of things that are not so easy. It can change the color. It can change the exposure, time of day, so you can manipulate time of day from the darkest night to the brightest day. You can change the world position. You can kind of get where you are. We have depth maps of the position of the world, so you can kind of judge how it is, so you can manipulate and place things throughout the world. We have built technology into this tool that allows you to dynamically find buildings and cars and people that allow you to kind of segment them out and allow you to comp them in with different abilities and change colors and hues and saturations and such. And classification and dynamic and interactive, so you can play video or dynamics on top of this image. So this is to become a very smart image. So we then take this image, push it onto the stage, and you're able to then have this image with all these abilities and controls exposed so that it's easy for anyone to manipulate. So we make a picture that can talk. We make a picture that can talk, and it can talk to the wall and kind of talk about various things that are going along with it. So it can know the various controls it needs to do. It can do the image can know how much light to send. It can control how much DMX to send. It can control how much where the camera space is, all that.
Aaron, do you have advancing slides? Or are we staying on the relaxed slide? Just, there's been a bunch of questions to me.
Oh, I should. I've been progressing through. Sorry, let me restart. What do you guys see now?
Loki.
Okay, now you see the relax,
Yep.
and now do you see the next one?
Nope. Doesn't seem to want to go past relax.
Yeah, let me start from the next one. Do you see a bunch of our work that we've done?
Yep. Correct.
And next one?
Yep.
Okay, let me reset a little bit. Just sorry for the technical difficulties. So Refuse Effects, we've done a lot of kind of shows of various types. You can see some of the things we've done here. So virtual production is easy. As I've said, here's the various components that go throughout it: camera stuff, lens calibration, camera sync, and protocols, etc. Various configurations on the stages that go through.
It's not sliding again. It's still on virtual production is easy.
Okay, let me,
Not sure why.
here, let me change one thing real quick then. Sorry.
I think if you close your share and then reshare again, it should be okay.
Here, I'll just talk about it and I'll show a video in a sec.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. I just have to. Okay. You guys can still see me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Sorry about the technical difficulties. All right. So let me just rehash what I'm saying. Roscoe has paired with a company called, Fuse Effects has paired with a company called Roscoe to make this system called RDX Lab. And what RDX Lab stands for is Roscoe Digital Experience Live Action Backdrop. So we're basically making a backdrop that'll be put onto an LED wall, and you can kind of manipulate it and see it working as you do it. So we work with Roscoe to take their library, digitize it, run it through Unreal as a plugin, and then place it on and show it so that you can kind of manipulate a live backdrop. And so what you're able to do here, let me share this screen. Hopefully this one works. So what we have here is we have a experience where you can, or a tool that allows you to take any of the images that any photographer makes or does and throw it up onto a wall and manipulate it live with an iPad. So you can change this, and it's supposed to expose all the various things that you've planned for the image. So you can change time of day, you can change your general blur, you can change your exposure, you can pan the image left to right, you can do any of these various things that you would normally want to do in a backdrop, but allowing it to do it simply. And the goal of this tool is to kind of make it fast and easy to spin up a new backdrop when filmmakers don't have time to build out a full 3D scene for their environment. So what we've done is we've paired with to take the entire library and allow you to make a simple and easy way to change throughout all the various images. And so you're able to not only change time of day in that, but you're able to place lights and place digital lights that expose different times of day throughout the image. So you're able to kind of create your own painting on screen live on set. So you can kind of craft that image and make it more easy and easy to use for everyone that views it. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but that's my presentation and everything.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate it. So seems like we have a few minutes. So if somebody wants to prep up questions, that would be wonderful. In the meantime, I'll give you guys just a little bit of an example of some of the stuff that we did recently on Fathead. So when we were building our pipeline as kind of novices in this space, there's a couple things that we did. We started off with using something like Bluescape for our storyboarding and other tools. And we began to create integrations between the different tools like SilverStack, Palm Fort, LiveGrade, Fifth Kind, and other tools. And one of the things we found was easy was SMPTE standard 2114-2017, or C4, which is a hashing standard. So it was an easy API integration to let us know that we were talking about the same thing in between different tools. In our situation, we stood up Arch platforms and we created basically a shared workforce as well in the cloud. Everything we did was in the cloud, so that we could roll teams across the globe. And again, like it's kind of shown with several of these major groups here, is we had to break everything else into partners or partner pieces. So starting with things like when we were doing our original VAD, we had three major teams, one in Greece, a group called UME that was building an environment. We had a group at RIT, which was building an environment. And then we had some folks out of both London and LA that were building an environment. And so as we all contributed to it, we had to make sure that everyone was basically making sure to keep the perforce in sync, that it was all standardized, because I've actually been in several meetings where people have started to cry thinking they've deleted all of this data. Not good. So this is a little bit, again, you can see some of the background here on what we were doing and how we were doing some of this stuff. We'll actually publish a whole paper around this and the workflow around how we did it. And even once we shot, we were moving real time our Alexa rod to the cloud for our working environment. And some of the partners we used was Third Floor, Happy Mushroom for Final Pixel, once we got the initial work done from the small groups. But making sure that we did not break pipeline situations was really important. I'm really excited about Josh's talk about potentially putting USD into this pipeline. I think that there's some really amazing potential there. So I'll stop blathering and see what kind of questions we might have. Do we have anybody that are throwing questions at us? So I'm not seeing anything right offhand. So maybe I could pull the panelists all back on and maybe we could ask each other a few questions. So if everyone wants to bring their camera back on, and we've got about 7 minutes left, and see if we have questions for one another. We still got you, Brad? You there? There he is. So let's just throw a question out there in general. As we see, this is extremely important to work with a lot of different other tools and teams and building up some of these components. Are there any important tips or tricks that some people should be aware of out there that you need to be paying attention to? Let's throw it at you, Brad. Let's start off.
Well, and obviously I try to put my hand up and say I'm probably the least pipeliney of all the clever pipeline type folk in here, just purely because obviously, you know, as we've discussed, sort of, we tend to be involved in the prep stage, and then, you know, when it gets really complicated and expensive, then we tend to sort of scurry away. But, you know, again, you know, just sort of focusing on the area that you know, I guess I have better awareness of, you know, just I sort of hark back again to just that for anyone, you know, on shows of any level, and what we're coming up especially is, you know, one of our focal points at the moment is working with art departments. And, you know, this is related to VAD, but it can all be separate from VAD, is just having awareness for artists coming through, and this will go to some of the training things as well, I think, you know, having them exposed to the engine. and what that means as far as having, you know, and this is partly connected with the USD thing, having some kind of common bucket of bits. And we're very excited about USD as well. But again, for what we do, we'll probably be a bit more of a follower on the USD than a driver of that. But definitely, it's, you know, as far as having awareness of what to sort of look at in our area, you know, getting engine awareness, getting people across that. And, you know, there's little gentle on ramps for people that have come from outside the area with, you know, twin motion sitting on top of something like Unreal Engine. That's a nice way for people to come from a somewhat familiar type paradigm, but see what the engine can do. And then as they get more comfortable, they can strip away the twin motion layer and then they can start diving into the raw engine. And I think, you know, as people over the next 2 or 3 years, especially, and to be honest, a lot of the youngsters coming through, that's going to turbocharge the ability, I think, for all of us to really rapidly start communicating, especially, as I say, you know, in our area where we're looking at early viz and turnover of ideation and getting that in front of all of the, you know, the stakeholders that, you know, may not be running NVIDIA 3090s or something. So devices and engine.
Or A6000s.
Yeah, there we go. For the real professionals amongst us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, you know, that's an exciting area where I think, again, we're trying to push awareness of that. And again, that's, you know, as I say, it's probably not very pipeline-y focused, but getting stuff into that little reservoir at the beginning, then we can really start building the pipeline out of that.
Alrighty, Josh, I see your hand up.
Yeah. So again, Brad, to extend on that, and I guess maybe take it to a more pipeline-y place, is collaborating with the traditional art department as the virtual art department. Well, first off, we use very different DCCs. They're primarily working in more CAD-centric applications like Vectorworks, SketchUp, Rhino. And we need some way of translating the work that they're doing into either into an environment that we're more familiar with, like Maya, or directly into Unreal, which I think is definitely the goal, and it's what it'll help open up faster iteration. The one thing that we try to avoid is this idea of the handoff, where the art department builds something, we wait a month or so for them to get that approved and locked in, and then they hand it off to the final pixel team, who has to then scramble to the finish line to deliver. If we're able to work with them in parallel, it means that we get a head start. But the flip side to that is that it also gives them the ability to iterate right up until the last moment. So we do need to ensure that hey, there is a last call check-in for, like, let's say, environment layout. Forever hold your peace after that point, because then it's going to our asset department and they're going to go in and build the hero versions of that. But I do still think that having that centralized database, whether it's in USD or you're building custom translators to go between applications, that is completely essential whenever you're collaborating with any traditional film department, such as the art department.
Yeah, and I got to re-echo both sentiments there. Your traditional art department, definitely, it's so much better if they have some understanding of these tools and in these aspects of tools where they can begin to blend the worlds, because they really need that, you know, especially in something like for third floor gray boxing sessions, and then taking it from that gray boxing session through to something else. So very, very important. I also think that, again, creating this common platform, something like a C4 or SMPTE 2114-2010 or a USD or something else along that line, one of the number one questions we're getting right now. It's you're going to see a huge rise of the digital backlog for the studios right now, where they all realize that they need to build a 3D basically backdrop, and they don't have it. And they're going to have to get that stuff together. And I apologize, but it looks like we've run out of time. And I just really want to thank everybody here today. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Aaron, Brad, Josh.